much. I think the way that you summarized how we should deal with every personality type there as your tip section was excellent. That is very important. So I would definitely, if you guys took one thing from the show, go back to that and look that up again. Very, very interesting. I really, really enjoyed this episode. I think we shouldn't have left it on the shelf for this long. Yeah. This is the gospel, man, right here. So this is really, really...
Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real life tools, tips and tricks to help you not only discover but also reach your ultimate goals. Welcome back everyone to the Real Life Tips podcast. This is episode number 30 and we've got another great topic to share with you guys here today. I'm your host, Mono.
You're joined by Leon as usual. Thank you very much for joining us. Welcome back. Grab a seat, get comfortable. This is another good one. It's been on our list of topics to do for quite some time. It required a little bit of insight, just some research, just to make sure that we don't come here and botch it completely. But this is going to be an interesting one. It's something that I personally really needed in my life in order to just be a little bit more compassionate and understand other people a little bit and where they come from. But yeah, without being that vague, Marnu, maybe we should introduce it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great one because it's all about personality types and DiSC profiling specifically. So if you've never heard about DiSC profiling, we're going to cover it extensively in this episode here today. The importance of DiSC profiling, what exactly is the purpose of DiSC profiling, and how can it benefit you in not only your work relationships, but also in your personal relationships. Maybe the relationships that you have with your friends, with your family, with your spouse or your loved one, or whatever the case is, right? So understanding people, I think, is always such an interesting topic for me, Leon, because I think I've always had this...
And the mystery.
Yeah, exactly. It's this mystery of your understanding why people react to certain scenarios in a certain way, or how certain people can just really jump in and start taking action and others just can't. It's just no matter what they do, they just really can't be the same person as someone else. And it's really looking at it from a whole different perspective of seeing that there is science behind it. There's been extensive research and studies done in the past by a number of
very smart people.
A number of very smart people, yeah. And we're going to extrapolate on that quite a bit here today and see what sort of power sits behind understanding this DiSC profiling.
Yeah, very interesting. And I think what I like about DiSC profiling is that I'm a guy of formulas and reasoning and creating some sort of argument towards proving something. I'm not someone that just likes to take things as they are. There needs to be explanation for it. So I like formulas, but I don't like long ones. So DiSC profiling is literally 4 letters. That's something my little brain can remember and can understand, and I can relate to it. So I really enjoy having those little crutches to rely on when I, for example, face a person that's just the complete polar opposite of me, and we're stuck in a conversation. Maybe it's a business conversation. You're forced into having to have the conversation with this person, where maybe in a personal space or at a friend's house or whatever, you'll just politely remove yourself from the conversation. Now you have to continue with it. Having a tool at your disposal like DiSC profiling might be able to actually help you interpret the person differently and kind of aid your own biases towards that type of person and make the right kind of assumptions and lean in towards his personality type. I think that's what it's about, is to try and be a little bit more chameleon, because we're all different. And I mean, I find myself to be quite a good chameleon. I can pretty much get along with anyone. But I do need to have this tool at my disposal to enable me to do that, because I need to understand, okay, this person is a D or I or S or a C, or maybe both of those or whatever, and we'll get into those now and what they mean. But by doing that, I can immediately see that, okay, this person is maybe a little bit soft and I might be a little bit dominant, so I need to kind of meet him halfway. And by doing that, you almost always find that person suddenly starts warming up to you as well. because now you are kind of meeting them on their level, which means they'll start inevitably leaning in towards you for the conversation. And the whole point of having, in this case, in this example now, a business conversation is to have something lucrative or productive come from that conversation. That's the whole reason you're talking about business. So by having this tool, you inevitably create better business in the long run. So very, very interesting topic. I think we need to go nice and deep into this, give a couple of examples.
Yeah, I agree with you, Leon. I think it's important because as much as you are sometimes faced with someone or dealing with someone or having a chat with someone and you feel that there is some sort of a disconnect, you can't always run away from those conversations. Not in business. Sometimes you're forced into those conversations and you have to see it through, and you can't reach a mutual agreement or understanding. And I think you can best summarize it as it feels like a disconnect.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of communication on a day-to-day basis. So it's all about building rapport, I think, with the other person. In business, in sales, we deal with that a lot. Building rapport with a client, with a customer, in order to build some sort of trust foundation for them to trust you, for you to trust them, and to play open cards with them, really. It's not about manipulation. It's about looking at the environment, looking at the situation, understanding it better. And with that new perspective, you can go and be more productive about the outcome of that specific engagement with that person.
Yeah, I think it's important to understand, that, and I firmly believe that there's really no bad people. There's just misunderstood people. So the point here is to create some sort of system, or to have a system at your disposal that helps you to interpret those people and understand them better. And there's always a line. I mean, we're not talking about leaning in towards moral indifferences or integrity differences and anything like that. We're just talking about being able to have a productive conversation with people that you would normally not maybe click with. And that's pretty much what this is going to be about. This episode is all about understanding other people a little bit better, because they probably just misunderstood. And you might be at fault as well. It's sometimes looking into yourself and seeing that maybe I'm too dominant, maybe I'm too sociable, maybe I'm too gentle, and toning that a little bit and adjusting those little volume knobs. And that's just going to make your relationship stronger. It's going to make you better deal with different personality types that you would usually clash with.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kick it off with where does one start, right? I think it's important to note a couple of things here. So there is an official test that one can take, and it really strongly leans towards the workforce and understanding the teams that you work within in your business a little bit better, so that you can manage them better, you can lead them better, or you can work in better harmony with those people around you. But as much as that is true, I think the main goal for us here today is to shed some light on the matter and really to create some form of awareness, so that you can, by the end of this episode here today, sort of place yourself in this DiSC profile. Are you a D? Are you a C? Are you an I or an S? And really understanding the differences between them, so that you can get a foundational understanding of what does this DiSC profile do for you and how to sort of place yourself in it. And I can almost promise you, during the course of this episode here today, as we're going through this DiSC profile, you're going to already be able to start thinking of people close to you and placing them in these little categories, and already understand why it is that they communicate in a certain way, why it is that they do certain things, and why it is that they're focused so heavily on analysis or statistical information. Yes. Or the fact that they are very dominant in a conversation and you can't always get your point across because they always sort of hush you down. So you'll understand them better as we progress through this episode here today. So I think without further ado, Leon, let's deep dive into the DiSC profile, break down each and every aspect of it real quick. If you haven't noticed, the DiSC profile is broken down into 4 letters: D, I, S, and C. And each and every one of those are personality types or personality styles within one specific personality type. So we're going to break it down letter by letter, and we're going to start off with the letter D for dominance. Leon, Do you want to deep dive into that? Because, and the reason I'm going to give this to you is because you know that you're a dominant. So explain to us, what does that mean? What does the letter D for dominance mean in the D style of this profile?
D is for dominance. So it's one of the stronger personality traits, and it's something that can be interpreted as negative. But in this context, it's completely... The entire DISC or DiSC profile is about the positive connectivity towards these personality traits. So being dominant doesn't necessarily need to be a bad thing, and that's not because I'm that type of person, but it is actually a very good trait to have. So that pretty much are people that they're very direct, they're very strong in their will, and they're quite forceful at times. And I definitely do fall in that category. I think almost anyone that knows me will agree, including my very close family and friends. And it's not really, look, applied incorrectly, it can really come off quite obnoxious, and it could be overly emphasized in certain situations. It also means that I've got a bit of a short torch or a short candle, so I could rush to aggression, not physical aggression, but just overpowerment quite quickly. Just to kind of get my point across. And I kind of usually think I'm right because I'm the type of person, and we'll get to another letter in this later on, that I equally fall under. And with that extra personality trait, it means that when I'm dominant and when I do try and enforce my opinion, I've probably already done all the necessary research and analysis of that debate or whatever, so that I know that I'm right. And yes, of course, I'm not saying that in any cocky way. I mean, there are definitely times when that's not the case, especially in the more personal conversations and stuff that one has. But from a business perspective, and like Marnie said earlier, this is an incredible tool for business because it helps people to relate to each other. And, you know, all business is about making money, which means there's going to be an end customer. You need to understand how to speak to all of them. But anything that you apply in business, you can apply in personal life. So this is an equally important tool to apply in your personal life with your personal relationships. So dominance, being quite direct. I can be extremely direct at times. I do it with like a flavor of humor. I think Marnie would agree. Like I try and spice a bit of humor in there to kind of try and take the edge off, even though it's always kind of veiled with seriousness and being like I'm joking, but I'm not joking. It's a tool that I rely on, and I've relied on for many, many years. That now that I know that it's called dominance, it's maybe not the best word, but it can be used 100% as an asset, because it allows me to get things done. It allows me to not have things linger up in the air and being over debated for too long and having people undecisive and things like that. So it's also a very, very strong leadership character. Again, when toned correctly and applied correctly and trying to not be just like completely forceful, you can be very effective at getting things done. I heard a saying this morning actually that says, and especially in these times that we live in right now, I think it's quite applicable. And for some of the characters that we're going to work through today, this will go quite against the grain. But I'm the type of person that sometimes, in some cases, it's not necessarily going to be about doing it perfectly, but just doing it. Sometimes just getting the work out is also very important, and that creates forward momentum and propels people forward and the business forward or your relationship forward, etc. So that's pretty much dominance. Give your interpretation. What do you think and how do you assess me? I know that I'm a little bit guilty of this one, but again, like I said, when applied correctly, maybe it's an asset.
I think it's interesting because one of the questions I have is how do we identify if someone is a D-type personality, or not a D-type, but a dominant style personality. And it's funny because as you were talking there, I could already place that once again, because the examples that you gave there, Leon, were primarily focused around achieving results, getting bottom line results, right? So that's really what makes you a D-style personality, because you're focused around getting bottom line results. You're focused around maintaining control and achieving independence. And those type of things are all pinpoints of a D-type type personality or D style personality in itself.
100%.
I think it's interesting for me, Leon, because as much as there are some really good things that come of that type of personality, there are also some challenges, and each and every one of these personality types or styles that we're going to address here today will have their own challenges. And the other thing that I do want to point out is that just because you associate yourself with the D or with the I or the S, it doesn't mean that that's who you are as a person, independent of all the other type of personalities that are out there, right? We're all a combination of each and every one of these, but you will always lean more towards one or two styles of these personalities. So keep that in mind. Yeah. The other thing that I do want to point out is some of the challenges that I do see you facing and that are really, really associated with the D-style personality as well, is you struggle to show patience. You're not a patient person. No. It's one of the things that if you want something, you want it now. And as we're probably going through this, you're already thinking of someone close to you that sort of portrays the same traits of these personality types that we're going to go through. But Leon, you struggle with showing patience in a lot of these cases. And I think another challenge here that really stood out to me in the D-style personality is deep diving into each and every single step that you need to take to accomplish a specific goal is one of the things that could prove quite challenging in the D-style personality type in itself.
Yeah, that's extremely true. You actually hit on complete and utter gold there. So as much as I exude dominance and I'm quite detail oriented and analytical, I like to actually make sure of things and do my homework. That kind of clashes with the patience in some cases. And like I would say, I'm very, very extremely impatient, and it's definitely something that I've tried to work on and I've really given up in a way. Even though sometimes I actively try and approach things patiently, I really, really do struggle to curb that. It's almost so finely ingrained in me that it feels as if it's just something I kind of need to deal with and live with and not try and fix it, because it feels almost unfixable at this stage in my life. Mm-hmm. I kind of realized that when kids came. Geez, I have to just laugh because, I've tried, when kids came, I said, they are going to teach me patience. And you can ask my wife now, it's 6 years later after my firstborn, and I'm still the very same impatient person. There are times where I've got a softer touch when it comes to them with regards to patience and dealing with things that they do that's causing my patience alarms to go off. Then I can be a little bit more soft with them. But in general, inside me, I still have that fire burning that's just telling me I cannot take this taking so long. So yeah, as much as I'm detail-oriented, I really do have a mechanism that's kind of automatic. I don't know how I do it, but where as much as I want the detail, I want the peak detail, like the peaks. There's peaks and valleys and unnecessary detail. I can cut through that extremely quickly and just look at the really important, like needle-moving details, the things that will make a difference. Yeah, I think that kind of summarizes that. I hope there's some people out there that identifies with that, because I don't want to find out that I'm completely strange here.
I think so. In summary, D styles are motivated by winning, by competition and success. And that's really, it's achieving bottom line results. There are some really interesting facts about the D-style personality type, that are on the downside of it as well. I mean, some of the fears that D-style personality types experience are typically things like being seen as vulnerable or being taken advantage of. I'm sure you can relate a lot to that specifically as well. But there's also the downside of always needing to win, always thinking of a specific situation.
Not taking failures very well.
Exactly, yeah. Seeing something and seeing all in any sort of situation as a win-lose situation, as like who won in this situation, who lost in this situation, and taking that very personally as well. So if you're like that, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, that's me, then don't beat yourself up about it. It's a personality style. It's really just it means that you need to know and create awareness around what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and knowing how to handle those as well. So quite interesting looking at the dominance. I think the next one is the I style, and it stands for influence. This is something that I can't relate with, but I absolutely can think of a lot of people in my personal life that I can associate this with. So the I styles are typically motivated by social recognition, group activities, and relationships. So I think you can already think of those people who are, usually they like to be the center of attention. It's not because they're doing anything wrong or it's bad, or most people don't really understand them and why it is that they desire so much attention. It's part of their personality. They like being an influencer or trying to be an influencer or trying to get recognition by the peers or the people around them or close to them in their own personal groups or work relationship groups and things as well.
Yeah, 100%. I actually love these styles of people. I try and surround myself with them because my personality type is quite the opposite of that. So I find these people, if I lean in towards them, they kind of, it's almost as if they poison you with their happiness, if I can say that.
Yeah.
It's as if they immediately lift the room up, right? And they just kind of exude enthusiasm and optimism and good spirits, and that's really great. I mean, I can think of a lot of people that's like this, that immediately just pops up in my head vividly, because these people are the people that kind of stand out, right? They from all of these almost more mild-tempered classifications, they are the ones that you think about because they usually very sociable. They're the fun people at the party. They're the guys that want to kind of be center of attention, but in a good way, because almost everyone tends to gravitate towards them naturally. So that levitates them to the center of attention just by virtue of everyone wanting them there and enjoying their company. So it's a very, very strong personality trait, something that sometimes I wish I had. But I think it's a personality trait, once again, like you mentioned before, that we're definitely not flat. Like, we'll have a little bit of each of these DiSC profiles or letters. And so there's a little bit of aspect there that I see in you sometimes as well, Marnie, as far as influence is concerned, and the way that you can always be quite lively and very optimistic and like lift the room, and you'll play some music to us and guitar, and you like your socials. And I mean, I even enjoy my socials, but at the social, I wouldn't necessarily be the protagonist or the alpha, really enjoy these people. I think they are what kind of keeps the world centered a little bit, so that we don't all get too serious about everything that's going on. And because they're so high-spirited, it also means that they are the people that influence most people quite positively, probably the most. So it's very nice to surround yourself by the I-types, just because they'll definitely increase your positivity for that.
Yeah, and some of the goals that they're focused on typically is to generate excitement, to use their charm and optimism to influence those around them, to sort of spice up the vibe. And we've spoken a bit about this briefly in one of our previous episodes as well. I'm sure each and every one of you listening to this can think of at least one person that has this personality style that just loves using that optimism to influence others, to be more positive, to be, to smile, to be more happy, to focus on the positive side of life as well. So I love this personality type as well. Yes, as much as I see some traits in myself, Leon, I'm definitely not a dominant in this specific style of personality, but there definitely are some traits that I do see myself here.
It's almost like you are definitely on the influence side, but you're not necessarily an extrovert. So you won't, for example, be like that in a complete unfamiliar crowd where you don't know the people. But if it's people that you're comfortable around, you do kind of rise to the occasion of being influenceable or influential and outgoing and optimistic, etc. So yeah, I do definitely see them, even though it's more from a introverted side than an extroverted side.
Yeah. So Leon, let's look at the next one, which is the letter S. Stands for steadiness.
Yeah, steadiness. So this is probably one of the, I would say, letters that I relate to the least. But again, really enjoy the company of these people because they're almost the opposite of dominance in a way. So the S is for steadiness. It's usually people that are very even or mild-tempered. quite accommodating, extremely patient. So as we already mentioned, not me. Very humble, very tactful. And I mean, I can immediately, once again, there's so many people that pop up in my head here that just are 100% steady people. And what I like about these people, and the reason I immediately think of one specific individual very close to me, a family member, and I spend a lot of time with this person, and it is completely and utterly because of this personality trait. Because the fact that this person is very patient, very humble, very soft-mannered, soft-spoken, even maybe quite wise, very loving, caring, like almost like umbrella type person. For me, with my, let's say, dominant type of personality, very analytical and precise and all those kind of things, I need to kind of get someone to slow that down every now and again for me. So I need someone to actually come and say, listen, let's talk about this thoroughly and patiently and quietly and relax and sit next to the water, do some fishing and just chill and just release all the chase and whatever that you're always trying to chase and so on. So I really do think these people, they've got it under control, man. I don't know how, because again, I don't relate to this at all. But these people seem to have everything figured out. They're just so steady. They're so happy and content. They're very humble. They don't come across as flashy. They don't come across as people that are in your face. They do not seek center of attention at all. They kind of enjoy just being there in the moment. Absolutely wonderful people. So, I mean, I specifically, like I said, I've got one instance in my life of a particular person that exudes this personality trait. And I tend to really, really specifically enjoy that person's company purely because I'm the opposite of that. And that's one of the amazing things about the DiSC profile that I realized, and I'm glad I remember now to mention this, is sometimes this profile is very much opposites attract. And I think that's where the chemical and the old stories of opposite attract comes as well, as far as like romance and stuff is concerned. Because as much as we are quite dominant, each of us in one of these, and maybe overflow a slight bit in all of the others, I tend to really enjoy the company of people that are the opposite of, for example, dominance. If we're two dominant people in a room, of course you can imagine how that can clash, right? Yeah, so I do kind of tend to really enjoy my time with people on the opposite side of this DiSC profile, because when I'm with them, I almost feel like I can feel what their profile is like and enjoy it in that moment, even though intrinsically that's not me. And they kind of enjoy my dominance and what I exude once again, because it teaches them a part of personality that they not usually like. So very, very interesting.
I think it's really cool that you mentioned that, and it makes a lot of sense, because when you think about it, in the personality types that we're exploring here today, a lot of these personalities, or some of these personality types or styles, are ones that, especially the ones that aren't dominant, right? They're always looking for leadership. They're always looking to follow. Some people are just better followers than they are leaders. They're in it, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that that's just the type of personality that you have. And that makes a lot of sense, Leon, because if you're in the room with someone like an S, for instance, someone that values loyalty, that values helping others achieve certain things, helping the group achieve results, and if you're the dominant in that conversation or in that room, then of course you guys will get along. So that's something that I feel that I actually do lean strongly towards. Is a lot of the stuff in the S quadrant sort of really resonates with me, because I am highly focused on loyalty and accommodating others and helping others. And I think some of my biggest fears are typically, I see myself as a people pleaser. A lot of the times I hate letting people down. That's something that is so strongly built within or coded within my personality, and I never really understood why that is, and I beat myself up about it, because I always hated the fact that I want to please others. But now that I understand that this is just like part of my personality, I think I can better accommodate others in that regard as well. I can stop being so hard on myself. I can stop fearing it as much, and I can just start understanding that some people are dominant and they like to follow, and I like serving them in that regard as well. So very, very interesting that you mentioned that. And it does make sense It doesn't say that, because you're a D-type personality or a strong dominant, that you will get along with other strong dominants. It's really understanding that you will have your strengths and your weaknesses, and that working together with someone else on a project that has a different personality type, that balances the scale a bit, that equalizes the situation, will definitely benefit the outcome of that project in itself, or the specific relationship when you guys are dealing with conflict.
Yeah, that is extremely interesting. I think you just mentioned something there about people pleasers and so on. And I think a lot of the wording in this specific episode comes off negative, right?
Yeah.
Like even dominance and strong-willed or forceful or impatience, all of these things sound so but if you flip it on its coin to find the power in the word, it's actually usually more of a strength than a weakness. When you mentioned the thing about people pleasing and so on, it's something that I'm very, very unlike, and it's just because I was surrounded by similar people growing up, and I vowed never to be a people pleaser, because I always saw the people pleasing people as being taken advantage of. And, I've never been more wrong in my life. I realized that later on in life, when maturity set in and you get a bit of EQ or emotional intelligence, where people-pleasing people are in the world for that one very, very good reason, is they kind of the glue between the cracks that no one notices or sees, but that keeps the stuff together. And I've got very close family that are very much the same. And I had to come to the realization of what is the strength behind people pleasing? What am I missing? And as soon as I went down that rabbit hole, wow, I actually realized that non-people pleasers are probably in the wrong, and people pleasers are probably more right. Because the compassion that they show towards other people and the fact that they want to continuously help, even most of the time at the expense of their own, is an extremely, extremely humble and nice gesture. So we actually need to kind of take a bow to those type of people instead of always seeing them as, I don't know, I always saw them as targets or pushovers or can't say no and those kind of things, when actually in real fact, if you can control, I think if you can at least be a people pleaser, but control it to such a way that you do not get taken advantage of, which I think definitely for Martin's sake, it's like that, then it's one of the best assets I think one can have. And it's actually something that I am trying to, one of the things that I am trying to work on a little bit more is to have that compassion.
Yeah, interesting. So if you're wondering, how do you classify someone as an S-style personality? It's usually people who listens to others' perspectives, who tries to understand from someone else's perspective, who tries to keep their own needs to themselves, who don't really share a lot of their own needs and really focuses more on others than they do focus on themselves. Someone who is more accommodating towards others, someone who absolutely values loyalty and security and stability. But mainly, it's those people who are fearful of offending others and letting others down.
Yeah,
so really interesting. Moving into the last one, Leanne, the C of DiSC profiling, which stands for conscientiousness. The analyst, I think there's a big one here that resonates extremely well with me. I've mentioned it so many times that yourself and myself included, I think we are both so similar in this regard, as we deep dive into all of the analytical information of a specific task or something that we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah, conscientiousness, this is a strong one for me. Definitely one of my strong traits. I tend to be over analytical at times. I think we've already discussed about Marnie being over analytical himself. I think this is a very, very strong characteristic to have. I can't see how life and technology and advancement in the world existed without conscientious people that were able to be very precise, reserved, very systematic, very analytical, in order to achieve forward momentum and improve upon something that might have not been that great before. So in everything that I do, and I do take it to the extreme sometimes, but like I mentioned earlier, I'm not that detail oriented necessarily. I'm just very, very quick to assume based on very hard facts. So it's not that I get over analytical, but I do want to know the facts, and I do want to know the data. I completely live and breathe data. So I trust those, and I use those to make very many decisions in my life. Let me tell you, like, I don't do or jump into anything unknown without doing my research and without making 110% sure. And I do sometimes over obsess on things. So I would, for example, if it's something like that I really, really want, like buying a new car or a caravan or whatever, I would sometimes spend in excess of like 7 hours a day leading up to the purchase, just researching it over and over again, watching the same YouTube videos about a model of car, for example, every video that I can find until I make the purchase. So in some cases, but I think it's almost then turning into like a hobby where you're looking so much forward to that purchase that you want to know everything about it before you get your hands on it. So it's probably that as well. So it's probably fueled by a little bit of dopamine and so on as well. But yeah, conscientious people are very, very precise, very analytical. They don't do blasé stuff. They do not believe in just throwing stuff on a wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, what's really interesting about that as well is, as much as you are a dominant, which kind of clashes with this C-style personality type as well, I think you do have some traits here. And like you said, you want to focus on the details a little bit, but again, you focus on the logic and objectivity. So you quickly analyze and you quickly take action.
Correct.
It's because you're more a dominant than you are a conscientious person.
Yes,
and
that's right.
for me, it's a little bit of the opposite side. So I do have a few dominant aspects of my personality, but I absolutely do lean strongly into this C, the analyst. I focus very, very highly on quality and accuracy of executing a task, and sometimes that definitely does get me under. So it's, in summary, C-styles are motivated by opportunities to gain knowledge, to show their expertise, and produce quality work. They're typically classified as overthinkers or perfectionists. And so if you're seeing a lot of this in yourself, just know that it is an actual personality style that you have. Some of the things that you want to be on the lookout for in this specific classification of a personality style as a C-type personality, these people tend to fear criticism and being wrong. They always try and cover all their bases before they submit something.
They're usually not wrong. That's the
They're
thing.
usually not wrong, but they're so fearful of that. They have strong displays of emotion as well. So, just take it easy with them. These are some of the fears and some of the weaknesses that they do actually exude as well. Some of the goals that they do focus on is they try and stick to objective processes, and they try and be as accurate and as correct as possible all of the time, or most of the time. And they're very, very highly focused on personal growth. So I can almost guarantee that half of you guys listening to this, or even more than half of you listening to this show, I think definitely has that, because that's what our show is focused on. It's focused on personal growth. It's focused on gaining new knowledge or experience and using that experience in your own life as well. So very, very interesting to know that is actually classified as a personality style as well. So there you have it. Those are the 4 different classifications or quadrants that you can look for in other people around you. I think, Leon, let's move into the real life tips section of this session here today and see how it is that we can use this in our own lives to actually transform the way that we communicate with others and how we react to certain scenarios or situations in our own lives. Let's kick it off, Leon. Any tips that you would like to leave here today?
Yes, definitely. So I think the one is very, very obvious. And by the way, I think this was an extremely good topic to actually go over. I think especially the C-type, the way that you just explained it there, really, really interesting. Like you said, I think a lot of our listeners probably have that personality trait, and it's a really, really good one to have. Again, one of the tips that I would want to give you is that now that you are aware of this, because awareness is everything, right? So now that you're aware of this, how are you going to apply it? One of the tips I would definitely want to give is to go and think of the most obnoxious people, the people that you don't get along with,
Yeah.
and reevaluate those personalities or reevaluate those relationships based on this new method or this new reality that you now know that is DiSC profiling, and reassess them and see whether you didn't just maybe misunderstand them, and is there maybe a possibility of making amends with those relationships now that you know how to better interpret their stance. That is, I think, extremely important. Again, like I said in the beginning, I really do believe in this entire world there aren't really any bad people. There's just many, many misunderstood ones. And again, not talking about people in jail and people looting and rioting and things like that. I'm just talking about generalizing the general people that you encountered across your path that irritated you or whatever. They probably just, you misunderstood them, maybe they even misunderstood you. And relationships are very important, so try and go and see whether there are some that you can fix based on this new knowledge. And the second and my last tip would be, there's obviously, I mean, the concept is so pure and so nice that I don't think we need to really give any tips. But one of the things that I would say is a tip is to try, now again, now that you are aware and we've now kind of given it names and traits and values and given you this formula, assess yourself a little bit and just try and see where you can maybe level out a little bit, because we're all going to be a little bit too extreme in some of these. But now again, once you give something a name, you can see it, you can address it, you can actually work on that. So go and see of these personality traits, which ones do you actually want to be like, and see what you can do in order to lift yourself to them, and see which ones you are maybe over amplified on. I know for sure that there's some here that I could definitely tone down a little bit, and it wouldn't take too much from me to do that, and could be seen as obnoxious from the recipient side. So go and evaluate yourself, give yourself like a rating, go and try the test if you can. There are definitely free ones available. We decided not to share them on the show because many of them require you to give email addresses up and stuff like that, and we don't want you to get spam. But go and try and see if you can somehow take this test to kind of give you a very clear indication where you land. And then based on that, evaluate yourself, and just see how you can improve your relationships. Man.
Yeah, love that, Leon, love that. So I think I've got 4 tips, but actually let's just wrap it up into one specific one. So a couple of highlights that I want to leave with you in communicating with each and every one of these personality styles. And the D, starting off with the letter D, the dominant.
Just say yes.
And this is really when you when you're communicating with a D style personality, be brief and stay focused. Remember that they don't necessarily want the long story, and they don't really want to hear a whole explanation of everything. They want to get to the bottom line as quick and as effectively as possible. So when you're communicating with a D style personality, get to the point and get there quick. Right, because you don't want to bore them with details and all of these things that don't really necessarily interest them, or don't repeat yourself on an ongoing basis, right? In terms of the I, remember that these are the influences, and they really want to hear about your experiences. Allow them to ask some questions and talk about themselves as well, so that they can feel included in here. Open up to them, include them in the conversation. Don't bombard them with too many of the details and things as well. So very, very interesting and very important to focus on that when you're communicating with an I style personality. And then moving into the S, so these are the type of people who are great listeners. They, don't be afraid to be personal and to really express your interest in them and what you expect from them in a specific situation or scenario. Remember to be polite and avoid any confrontation. These people really don't like confrontation. They really don't like conflict.
Like mild-mannered.
Yeah, so really, really don't be assertive with them. Be empathetic and really try and accommodate them in that regard as well. And then lastly, touching on the C-type personality, these are the people who you would want to share as much of the details as possible, right? But focus on the facts, focus on analysis. Remember that these are the analysts of the world, right? These are the people who want to know the nitty-gritty, the details, but they also want to know the facts. So be patient, Be persistent with them, be diplomatic with them. Try and avoid using any emotional language or pep talk, because these people don't necessarily care too much about the emotional side of things and how you felt during a specific situation or a scenario. They want to listen to the facts and get straight to the point. So really take those things into consideration when communicating with those personality styles. Leon, I think it's been an absolute great episode in terms of deep diving specifically into the DiSC profiles and what they could mean in communication of people in your life, and really how they can assist you in understanding yourself better and to not beat yourself up about that. Let us know what you guys thought about this episode. Let us know your comments, your thoughts, and what personality type you see yourself in, and if this shared some insight. I really hope that this has been informative. Leon, any last words from your side?
No, not much. I think the way that you summarized how we should deal with every personality type there as your tip section was excellent. That is very important. So I would definitely, if you guys took one thing from the show, go back to that and look that up again. Very, very interesting. I really, really enjoyed this episode. I think we shouldn't have left it on the shelf for this long. This is the gospel, man, right here. So this was really, really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And remember to head over to our poll, our live poll that we're running on our site. It's hosted at rltstudios.com/show24. It's going to take you 2 seconds. Just let us know, do you want to hear more of us? 2 questions. It's going to take you 2 seconds, and we really look forward to hearing from you. And this is myself wrapping up. Mono.
Thanks. You were joined by Leon as usual. We'll see you on the next one.
See you on the next one. Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We really hope that you have found inspiration or motivation from our content this far. If you want to get access to sneak previews to our upcoming shows on a weekly basis, go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel or join our Facebook page, where we also share our blog posts and other great content from time to time. So head over to our Facebook and YouTube channels and feel free to share it with your friends so that they can also join you on the journey to success. Until next time, guys, cheers.